Hello everyone, welcome to the Grow Your Future podcast. My name is Zah, your host, and my co-host, the accountant to the stars, Sam Eljerban.
You are the biggest star in my accounting book.
Well, all of our clients are stars, aren't they?
They're all superstars.
They're superstars for getting into the property market and investing and creating wealth for their futures. Not everybody does it. And what we wanted to talk about today is our stars.
Yeah, I think to make it as relatable as possible, instead of talking theory, we talk a lot of theory and talk about a lot about the market in general. I think if we go and explore some client cases, and without naming them, of course, but showing people what they've done, the circumstances in which they did them, maybe the pain points, the good points, that way people can see that really anyone can do it.
I think the last few podcasts we've done, they've always been about market updates, you know, what's happening now, today. Yep. There's a lot of fear in the market, a lot of uncertainty. I think it's quite exciting for people to listen to that sort of stuff because the headlines are grabbing everyone, whether interest rates are going up or they're going down, the whole world's going to end, or it's a boom or it's a bust. People want to talk about what's happening now. Like if you go to a barbecue, Sam, and you know, obviously people know you're in the property industry, what's the first thing they ask? What's the market like?
Yeah.
How's work going? You know what I mean?
Well, you know what's funny? In property, since you've been doing it a long time, it's always a point of conversation. Whether it's up, down, sideways, everyone is talking about it's always on people's minds.
It's in our
Constantly.
culture. I think it's in our culture because property ownership is viewed as the great Australian dream, which is good for us investors because it drives the property market forward. People take pride in where they live. You know, the owner-occupiers really sort of buy on emotion. Yep. So, you know, the reason why we have such big capital growth in this country is because of owner-occupiers taking pride in where they live. So, you know, I think it's a good thing and it's always on people's minds. And but I guess the point I'm trying to make is everyone's interested in what's happening now. And we forget that, you know, property is really a long-term, boring asset that you need to hold for the next 20, 30 years. And, you know, if you're in a property for less than, say, 5 to 10 years, like, it's not long enough because you've got to pay so much in entry costs, there's taxes and all of that sort of thing, and you really want to make it worth it and let it compound in growth for later on. Yeah. So I think it was really important to talk about maybe real-life examples for our clients or what our clients have done. And talk about their successes, their hardships, all of those sort of things because, you know, even though it might look a little bit boring because we're just talking about numbers and all of that sort of thing, but it's not boring when you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars, even millions of dollars on an asset that is quite passive. You know, you're not involved in it and working in it like a business. And this is why we're trying to get everybody involved in this space because it will ultimately fund your retirement, you know, early in life rather than later in life.
I think it's good to go through some of the deals as well because of late, since COVID, you would have seen a lot of people make money quite quickly in property, right? Even our clients, yourself, myself. And that's not necessarily always the case in property. And I think it's a good reminder to people looking into property or who have property that it's really long-term game. You're not in it for a quick buck. If you want that or to lose a buck, go into crypto. That's quick markets, you know. Shares a bit slower. Property is like the turtle. You just put your money there, you let it do its thing. Like our parents did, they bought in the 80s or whenever. It's now times 10, nearly 20 in some cases, the property value. That's what you're trying to do. It's so regardless of the market and all that kind of stuff, it's just about getting in, holding it as long as you can. And
just on property as an asset class compared to, say, the crypto and the shares and all of that sort of thing, I guess the one big difference with property that you and I love is, and our clients, is the fact that you can leverage your money. So if you've got $100,000, you can turn that into a $500,000 investment. And then over time, even in 10, 20, 30 years, even if you haven't paid down the debt, you're still controlling an asset that's much larger than your original capital base. And this is where you can outperform the returns of things like crypto and the share market and stocks and all of those sort of things, and avoid the volatility as well, because generally speaking, property, like you said, grows quite slowly over time, like a turtle, right? But people think it's too slow. But when you add leverage into the mix, it's actually quite fast. And we'll go through some examples, and people will be able to see some of the types of money that our clients have made. And what we've done here was we've done 10 deals that all of these are our clients. None of these are mine personally or yours. Actually, I think there's one in here where you're involved. But what we wanted to really showcase is what we've done for our clients. I think the earliest we've gone back to is 2017. And the reason why we've done so many different deals is because we want to show our listeners that there might be something in here for you. It's not just generic like cookie cutter. Each client has a different financial position, has different goals and objectives. Their circumstances are different. So we've had to tailor make these acquisitions for their specific position in life. I would guarantee everybody that's listening to this podcast, there will be something in here for you.
Over that time, so that's 5 years or so, we've dealt with a lot of people, lots of different backgrounds. So at each time, you've had to come up with a different strategy to suit them, and you've pretty much gone through every strategy you could, every type of demographic and socio-economic sort of background of someone that needed help and wanted to get into property. So I have no doubt most people can relate to this.
And the reason, I guess, for this podcast, Sam, is to show people that everybody can get involved in this. You know what I mean? You don't need to have massive amounts of money. You don't need to have massive amounts of servicing. Like, there's something for everyone here. So let's get started on number one. So number one, this dates back to 2017. This is a very, very loyal client of ours who now has a portfolio of, I think, 5 or 6 properties. And he's done that in the space of, say, 5 or 6 years.
Was this his first property?
This one was his first one.
Okay, so he came in very green. He had no properties to go behind him at that time. Can you give us a little bit, obviously not his name, but his situation at that time?
So this bloke, he's a hard-working business owner. He started this business from scratch about, I think it was 8 or 9 years ago. He started making a little bit of money from it, and wanted to just sort of grow his wealth and sort of magnify what he had. But he didn't have much, right? And so he only had about circa 300 grand to spend. And this was in a period of time where we were in the established property market. We were doing a lot of stuff like sourcing secondhand properties. Very hard business because, first part of the business is trying to acquire a client that wants a shitbox property, because on the outside, these established properties don't look attractive. Too good. No.
Very attractive,
And then the other side is actually having to get the deal, right? And it's hard work. Obviously we've evolved as a business now, but we still think this strategy is there for the right people. And I'm sure there'll be listeners here who'll resonate with this particular deal. So this was an established apartment, like a really old apartment in a 1970s old red brick block in Newcastle. So it was, I think, about 5 k's from the CBD, very blue chip location. It was in a block of, I think, 10, so very boutique and small, very run down, and it was advertised for 330 grand. It was bought for $320,000. So this property, it required only, I think, about $50,000, because that includes stamp duty and all of that sort of thing, which was big money for our client back then. I think he was a bit of a bitch in the beginning. He's become a bit of a beast now when it comes to investing, but he was very protective of his money.
It's the first one. It's going to be the case. With yourself, probably the same. With myself, you have to switch that mind from saving and to parting with it.
The way I describe it is you're converting your cash into bricks and mortar, which I would rather bricks and mortar than cash, right? So that was the mindset shift we had to teach this client. The value today, 5 years on, is $465,000. So that's about, what is that, 150 grand odd, right?
50% capital growth. 320 went up 150.
And
laughing.
mind you, he's had to wait 5 years of that. So that's, let's say, 30 grand a year.
Yep.
But to make 30 grand in his business, you know, is hard work. So he's extremely happy. He's used the capital growth as leverage to get into number 2, number 3.
Yep.
It currently rents for $370 a week, which means now the asset has a 6% yield. So a lot of people think, okay, my yield needs to be really high in the beginning. That's not the case. It eventually will catch up if you've got rental growth in that asset. And you know, initially it probably had a 4% yield, and now it's at a 6% because he's increased the rents over time. I think it was renting for like $300,
okay,
or even less when he first bought it. So not a bad buy. Obviously, he's not going to become a millionaire from this property, but it was a stepping
piece
stone.
in the puzzle. And that's what you do when you deal with clients, and when we meet clients, when you show them the 10-year acquisition strategy, it's just one piece of the big puzzle. So yeah, it's not super glamorous and
look, Sam, if you've seen this property, you'd go, "Why did you buy that for your client?" You know what I mean? Like, how embarrassing. Yeah. But look, it's done the job. You know, it's not pretty. It's not, like you said, it's not glamorous. But it does the job. He's got an extra 150 grand in equity that he can sell the property if he wants. He can refinance it, which he already has. You can pull the equity, put it into something else, or even, you know, go buy yourself a nice $150,000 car, whatever it is. Yeah. He's $150,000 better off than he was back in 2017. And because of that property, we got success. He was really happy with the result. He's gone on to build a portfolio of 5 or 6. I think he's now building a house and land that is worth going to be the end value 1.3 million.
Wow.
So that's going to be done by the end of the year. So he's gone in leaps and bounds. I'm super proud of him. And his next play, he wants to do some developments. Yeah. So, you know, that shitty old red brick 300k asset,
an apartment too,
really got him on the path 5 years, 6 years later to really kill it in this industry, right? He's created a good business for himself.
It really emphasizes that what we talked about initially is property is a long-term game. 5 years it took him, but you know, that less desirable property is now giving him 150 grand. The yield 6%, so he's really safe with this coming, say, interest rate little increase.
He's insulated.
He's okay. And why is that? Because he bought a while ago, and I think that's the lesson. Is he bought a long time ago. It's given him additional wealth, a good yield to now weather the storm moving forward. So.
Now there are challenges, right? Because we're being quite general here. There have been roadblocks, some challenges we've had with specific types of tenants that rent these types of properties. They're generally not the best types of tenants. We've had to spend money on the asset, so. You know, overall his yield will probably drop because he's had to pour money into it.
And stuff.
Hence the reason why now we only really focus on brand new, because you know, if you've got a portfolio of say 10 established properties that all need their toilets fixed and all of that sort of thing, it becomes a pain in the ass. So there have been challenges with this, but overall it's allowed him to get his foot in the door, because there's no way you're going to buy a brand new product at 300 grand.
100%. Just a quick question before we go to the next one is, what were do you recall his alternatives? Because this is obviously what he chose, and it would have been the best of what he could choose at his, you know, financial position and all that stuff. Can you recall the alternatives?
The alternatives at that point in time were to buy something, maybe like a house, but in a very, I guess, less desirable location than where we went here. So as our listeners and clients know, our first fundamental is location. Like we don't
hammered it. We
don't compromise on location. So location's the first thing. So that if that means you've got to get an apartment, then so be it. Because location in 20, 30, 40 years is what you're going to want over the asset itself. So for us, we're very, very big on location. So his alternative was maybe to buy a shitbox house out in wherever, in a less desirable location that maybe you won't be able to implement rental increases. Maybe capital growth won't be as high. But in saying that, there's been a great rush on land, and I don't think he would have lost. It's more so 10, 20, 30 years down the track, what would you rather, location or the asset itself? For us, it's the location.
Amazing. All right, what's the next one?
Next one is also an established property, but this time it's a house.
Yep.
It was on the Central Coast in the same year of 2017. These guys are actually really good friends of mine. They really believed in my business, and we got a great result for them. So this property was on a 600 square meter block.
Yep.
It was purchased for $520,000.
Yep.
Today's value is a whopping $805,000. So it's almost 300 grand, $250,000 in new formed equity in 5 years. It currently rents for $600 a week, giving it a 6% yield on its original purchase price. So this property had a very big value add potential to it. We could build because it was on a corner block. There was a bit of space to the side where, because it's got that dual entrance, we could build a granny flat in the future, which makes that property highly valued, right, to the marketplace. So there's a lot of space.
Yep.
I was really impressed with this particular purchase, because I think we purchased it, about 40 grand under market value, and it was at about a time where we were entering a bit of a downturn in the property market, so we were able to get a really good deal, similar to what we're going through now.
Yep.
And then obviously we just had to wait. It took a while to shoot up in value, but this client hasn't lost. He's now tapped into that equity, gone again, instead into a brand new property, because he now needs the tax breaks. But that was a big success, just like number one.
No, agreed. And a couple of lessons from that I found just by looking at those numbers. The return. So the initial apartment, the first deal, he went up 50% capital growth. The second one, he went up 50% capital growth. But the beauty of the second deal is, because his initial purchase or asset size was higher, the 50% is a much larger dollar return for him. So that just highlights leverage, and how if you're able to leverage higher, the same return will give you more money in your pocket. So that's a good comparison there between the first apartment and the second house.
So the downside, Sam, I guess, like, it's not all rainbows and sunshine.
Of course.
The downsides for these properties that are established is that initially when they bought them, there were two things that were really painful. Is that the yield was quite low, because generally you rent out established properties, especially
and houses are low, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you get a low yield, but also it required a lot of work. And we were lucky that this client had a lot of contacts in the trades. So he spent a good 3-4 days, I think it was almost a week, up the coast with his mates. I think they had a good time up there as well. But they painted the place, they redid the bathroom, and look, they would have spent tens of thousands of dollars on getting this place up to scratch. I've been there with this strategy before. It's good to pick up some short-term capital growth, but to me it's quite inefficient. It soaks up a lot of your time, a lot of capital, drops your overall yield, but in a way, because he's persevered through it and he's kept the asset, he's raised the rents, he's claiming depreciations on that, and on that that renovation, he's come out the other side quite good. So there's no right or wrong when it comes to investing in property. It's just it comes down to how much time do you have, how much do you want to dedicate to it. But fortunately now he's got an asset that's growing in value. It's already grown. He's been able to tap into that new formed equity. The only problem is these older type of properties tend to need more maintenance, repairs. So over time, he's going to have to attend to that. But overall, the bigger picture, he's made money. Yeah.
Another quick lesson before we move to the next one. The leverage was one, but I just noted is, what was it? The softening market. So he said he bought it in a softening market. And what does that say about times? Acquiring an asset, even in a hot market where it's going up or softening or declining, over time in that 5 years, he's made nearly 300 grand. So right now in the softening market, if we replicate, obviously it could be a different area, blah, blah, blah. It's more or less, as long as you're getting a good asset with potential, the market doesn't really matter.
Well, you can still do stuff like this.
Long term.
Yeah, you can still do stuff like this. And people need to understand that, even though these numbers look good, there's a lot of work involved in it, and there'll be more money that you need to spend, and you will hate your life for the next 2 or 3 years if you buy one of these places. But if you can persevere, go through the downturns, and then wait for the market to pick up again, you can be assured that you'll get that return on investment on that back end. And if you hold them for 10, 20, 30 years and you're able to maintain them, great, you're free. We'll go number 3. It's another established property. It's the last one for the established model. But this time it's in Brisbane. And Brisbane it's been flat for a number of years now. I think the last 12, 15 years it's been pretty flat. It's about to sort of it's already started to take off. So this was 2018 where it just started to take off. We bought another one, a house on about 600 squares. It was purchased for $512,000. Today, its value is also $805,000, same as the last one. Rents for $590 per week, giving it an overall yield of 6% on the purchase price. So this was done a year after the Central Coast one because we felt that the Central Coast market was, quite overcooked, coming from Sydney. So we moved up to Brisbane, a different market. Yields were strong, and the affordability was there as well. So this was a really good purchase because it provided the client with enough equity to pull out and invest into his business, because the client was no longer wanting to go into more property at that point in time. They needed capital to invest into their business. So property doesn't just need to be used as a vehicle to buy more property. That's the great example of this. Like, they were able to tap into, I think, $150,000 worth of capital appreciation, and use that equity to invest into their business, which now is thriving, throwing off more cash flow, giving them good numbers so they can even buy more property from there.
It's a good reminder that property is, it allows you choice over time. I see it a lot with clients in the tax space. It's funding businesses. I've had a lot of clients buy property early on, and later on in life they can buy a franchise worth $500,000. If you go to the bank to try and get $500,000 business loan for a franchise, it's high risk, and the loan rate's going to be very high. So that client that had that idea and you helped facilitate, you were able to get him that equity he needed to buy or invest in his business. And what was the rate of interest he was paying on the loan? 2%. So what property does for clients, not just allows them to grow more property, grow their property portfolio, but allows them to fund other assets as well. Business, cars.
I've done it myself, Sam. It's gotten me out of trouble a lot of time. I've had bad credit card debt, and I've needed to refinance my properties to pull the equity out of that to pay off that bad debt. I've had business ventures go wrong. And I've had to pay out 200 grand here, 100 grand there.
So what are you being? You're more or less being your own bank. So your properties are your bank, and it's helping you finance your deals. The
more assets that you hold that you can that grow in value and you can refinance against, the safer you will be and more insulated you'll be when it comes to business. So for us people in business, that's very important because we don't know when our next paycheck's coming from. So, if you invest in, say, a marketing campaign in your business with, let's say your budget's 100 grand and you just lose all of that, and you've done that via debt, as in bad debt, if you've got the portfolio to support it, you can get yourself out of trouble. And this is exactly what these guys have done, but they've done it to invest in their business in a positive way. And they're only paying back 2% interest over 30 years, right? What's a normal business loan, like 5 years or something like that?
Yeah, you could push it to 10.
So the repayments are going to be so high. So really, property is really a vehicle, not just to buy more property, but or achieve passive income. It's more so, it's insulating you from all of the bad shit that's going to happen in your life, because bad shit's going to happen, right?
How about the saying, safe as houses? That's where it comes from.
Well, that's where it comes from.
It's a safe bet. So now it's a really good story. It helped him go harder in his business, which is what property does. It allows you options.
And we always love our clients to buy more property, right? But But we're very pro-business.
Yeah.
Like, we are very, very pro-business.
They sort of go hand in hand.
Like, if anything, we tell people to invest in their businesses first before investing in property. These guys did it the other way around, but they ultimately, over the long term, won.
Indeed. No, very great.
Good result. So, okay, number 4, we're going to go to the brand new stuff now. And this was a very unique investment for one of our sort of high net worth clients who they required something that was high cash flow.
Yep.
Similar to almost like a commercial property yield, right? They wanted to achieve about 6 or 7% from the very beginning. Now, what we did for them is we built them this dual key investment. Now, a dual key is almost like a duplex, but it's on the one title.
Okay.
So it's a house and land. To one side, you'll have maybe a 2-bedroom, and to the other side, you'll have a 3-bedroom. But it's on the one title, so it's not something you can sell separately.
Okay.
So you can't sell next door and then keep the other. You have to keep the whole property. If you're going to sell it, you've got to sell it as one. These investments aren't really capital growth focused because they're purely targeted to investors.
It's a very niche.
It's very, very niche.
To resell that, it's got to be either an investor or maybe an extended family sort of.
Exactly. So the beauty of these assets or this asset type is that it's double depreciation.
Oh, massive, yeah.
Because you've got 2 kitchens, 2 bathrooms and all of that sort of thing. And you've also got 2 sets of incomes. So you're insulated from, I guess, vacancies. And you'll get a higher income because you've got 2 sets. And this property, we bought the land and built it for $580,000. Today it's worth $720,000. So there has been some capital growth purely on the land. It currently rents for $780 per week, giving it a 7% yield on purchase price. That's a pretty high yield. Now let's just say that with a high yield, also you sacrifice something, and that's capital growth. So this property is not focused on being, okay, we bought it for 580, we need it to hit 1.5 million in the next 10 years. That's not the case. It's purely bought for cash flow and tax depreciation because of that double depreciation. Yeah. It suited that type of client.
Yeah, that client came with an issue. He wanted cash flow, and then you've sorted him out on that cash flow. But it's good. It's interesting to see, even though it was a cash flow play, he still made a decent chunk of equity in that deal. Just quickly, while we're on a dual key type of property, can you explain to the listeners how they differ from a duplex? So
okay, so a duplex
might not know.
Yeah, so difference. A duplex is, and we mentioned it earlier, the duplex is 2 titles. So you could build a duplex, it's 2 properties next to each other, and if you wanted, you could sell one, and then you could keep one, right? So they're separate properties. With a dual key, what it is, it's the one property. Okay. So you can't sell one side, you have to basically either keep it or sell the whole thing on its own.
And the dual key as a property to acquire, would that be cheaper?
It'll be cheaper.
Okay, so you get an even better return than a duplex sort of thing?
From an investor point of view, yes. But if you were to, of the view of selling, then a duplex is going. And we do duplexes as well, right? They're much more expensive to do. But if you were to sell them, you can sell them separately and you can charge a premium, right? And that's where, I guess, that's a capital growth play. Also, a duplex can be a cash flow play as well. Depends on how the numbers stack up. But usually people do duplexes to manufacture growth, right? Where these guys just want a purely cash flow.
Cash flow. Amazing.
So number 5, this is a brand new house and land. Also, oh no, not also, because the last one was in Newcastle. This one's going back to Brisbane in 2019. This was purchased land and build for $538,000. Today's value, $800,000.
Wow.
Big growth in the last 3 years.
That's pre-COVID too.
Yes, just beforehand. It rents for $520 a week, giving it a 5% yield. So we've gone from 6% to 7%. Now we're down to 5%. The reason why this yield is a little bit low, which is still quite a very good yield, right? But why it's lower than everything else is because there's going to be, or there already has been, really good capital growth.
Another reason why is that was bought in 2019, so it hasn't had enough time to increase its yield. those other ones are 2-3 years older.
Good
so you
point,
need more
Sam.
time in the game, which is what we're trying to tell
Good
people.
point.
It's
So
all time.
as a yield on its own at this point in time, it's actually very, very good. I think what this client should do is really tap into this equity straight away. He's sort of sitting dormant at the moment.
Okay.
He's in business himself. I think he's going through a bit of a tough time in business. But what I think he should be doing is tapping into that equity and going again into another property because it's been sitting there for a while. And we call that lazy equity.
Especially now, wouldn't you agree? Before rates go up a little bit more, tapping into that while it's peak at its growth, at its high value,
Yes.
cashing in.
So, what we do there is we refinance and we equity lock, right? And we lock that equity in, even if he doesn't use it. What he should be doing is just having it sitting there for the right opportunity to come up.
Or even help his business.
Yeah,
if he needs it.
this guy, he's the envy of a lot of my clients because it's a house and land under $550,000 in a really good Brisbane location, and you can't even get a townhouse in this location anymore. I think they had townhouses in the same area selling the other day for like 680 grand. So a house and land, you're looking at 800 plus now for a similar product. So this guy done really, really well. I'd love to see him come back and do some more. But hey, he's got the choice. That's the good thing.
That's what it gave him. We gave him the choice. We'll see what he says and when he comes back to you.
Yeah, we'll try and twist his arm. Number 6 is another brand new house and land. This one was in Brisbane in 2020.
So you stuck. It's interesting to see over the last 5 or 6 we talked about. You can see where you've moved around, and that's obviously dictated to by the client and their budget and where you see an opportunity, right? So you've gone the second one in Brisbane, 2020.
Yeah, so we chase the market, we chase affordability, we chase yields, because as in investors, we need to make sure we're buying at an affordable price point where there's room for growth. Like if we bought in Sydney back then, like there's not as much room for growth, and also the yields aren't there to help support the asset, right? So it's really important to focus on affordability. And this is why we've gone through every deal here where I think the maximum, which is the last one, is $1 million. You don't need to spend millions of dollars on property investment. You really want to spend between, say, the sweet spot is between $500 and say $800,000 because that's where the affordability is, that's where the yields are, that's where everybody's going to turn to when the market turns because you can't go below that.
That's right.
Right? So when the higher end stuff, 1.5 million crashes, where are those people going to live when they move out? They've got to go to the affordable stuff, which will always make it quite stable. So it's boring, yes, but it works.
Not glamorous, but it's effective. There's a price floor in property.
But this one was amazing, right? $795,000 package price, land and build. Today's value is $1.2 million.
Wow.
This was done in 2020, remember? So 2 years ago.
Why didn't you get me that one, man?
Because you bitched it, Sam. I showed it to you. You didn't want it.
I rejected it.
So in 2 years, this guy made 400 grand.
Wow.
This guy, he is an employee. He works for, I think, an engineering company or something like that. He is on about 150 grand a year.
Pays a lot of tax.
So this suits him. But where I was going through with that was how long would it take him to earn $400,000 a year tax-free?
He'd have to have his own business probably.
Exactly. So, for him to do that in 2 years is amazing, right? To get, 400 grand worth of equity. That currently rents for $765 a week. Its yield is 5%. So it's positive cash flow. He can either take that positive cash flow, pay down the debt, or he can park it aside in an offset, which we sort of suggest our clients do. Save up money for another deposit, or go spend it on yourself, whatever you want to do.
Do you recall at that time? So that was 2020. Do you know, was that early 2020 or late 2020?
Early.
So that
he got in at the right time, pre-COVID.
Because that's a big spend, and he probably had a few options with that price point. Do you recall what other things you explored with him and why he settled on that property?
We explored some townhouse projects that were priced a little bit cheaper. I explained to him, so he came to us basically needing capital growth.
Okay.
He used his parents as guarantor for the deposit, which was about $140,000. So basically, he's in this property, no money down.
Oh my God,
right?
wow.
I think he paid stamp duty and my fee. That was about it. So this is a really good example for people who don't have any money,
Yes.
but they have parents that have equity in their homes that they're more than willing to sign over to you.
Yep.
You know, a portion. It could be 100 grand, could be 150 grand. We're doing a lot of that for our clients, and they're using that as their deposit to buy a $750,000, $800,000 property.
Wow.
So they're sort of in with no money. This is a great example. He's made 400 grand from, let's say his stamp duty was 15 grand.
Wow.
Because that's basically all
he
he's
had
had
to
to pay. Right, so for our listeners, if you don't understand what we're talking about, the 20% deposit that usually you would have to save up hard for has been funded by this client's parents' equity in their home. And he was fortunate enough for his parents to sign that over and use it as leverage to go and get another bank loan of about 600 odd grand, and then write out this boom, make $400,000 worth of equity, and now he can use that equity to either pay out his parents and go, okay, we don't want the guarantor anymore, or he can take that new formed equity and use it as a deposit for number two. I don't know what he's doing yet. I think he's about to get married and all of that. So he could pay for his wedding with it, right? If he really wanted to.
That's what that's a life-changing amount of money.
Yeah.
400,000.
And he was in it for, say, 15 grand because he only really funded the stamps. And this a lot of us, I mean, I know I don't, but a lot of us have parents that would be more than willing to sort of give equity in their homes to use as a deposit. It's a possibility, right? Don't look past it because this guy's made 400 grand, hasn't really put his parents out. It's just a really, really clever strategy.
That's really turbocharged his progress. And if you think about it, what is that guarantor? It's like an early inheritance. And most parents I've found, they're like, oh, well, it makes sense.
Well, let's not forget also, your parents' property is probably growing in value it is growing in value as well, right? If they've bought in, say, Sydney, in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it will go up in value. Yeah, there's a bit of a correction now, but it will eventually go up in value. So by the time you're done with the guarantor, it probably cancels each other out anyway.
They probably don't want the money back.
Exactly. Well, what are they going to do with it, right? Save 2%. They would rather see their kids prosper. Sure. So, if you guys, who are listening out there have the access and are fortunate enough to have parents that will do this for you, you should look into it.
Very effective.
You could be 400 grand ahead in 2 years' time.
That's an amazing example.
Number 7. So we're going to move on to a different asset type. It's a townhouse, brand new.
Yep.
You've done one of these, Sam.
Yep.
We've had about 20 clients do this.
Yep.
This was done in Brisbane. 2020/2021. The reason why it's both years is because it's sort of overlapped in terms of settlements. So very recently, purchased for $550,000. Value today, there are townhouses in that complex selling for $750,000. Rents for $585 a week, giving us a 5.5% yield. That is a very strong yield for something that's only been bought in the last year or two. And it's strong capital growth as well. It's 200 grand.
Yeah, that's what really got me on that project, and why I was so excited about it when you presented it is townhouses, I find, they have a lot of homeowner appeal, but can also give you a good yield, which I find could be a very good sweet spot because house and apartments on the other sides of the spectrum. If you can nail it with some townhouses, which that project pretty much was, you're really getting the best of both worlds. You could get the worst of both worlds if you go in an inferior project, but if you get a really good project like that, I think you killed it.
Well, to buy a decent home in this suburb, Sam, you're looking at over $1 million. So it's a great suburb. It has all the amenity, everything that you need for it to grow in value. Great demographic. But as property investors, we don't want to spend over $1 million. We want value, right? And like we said earlier, we need that affordability point. So townhouses allow you to buy in those locations that aren't where you can't afford to buy the house. Yep. but you still want that land component, and you still want to take part in that demographic.
That suburb, yeah.
Because at the end of the day, your tenants and I guess buyers of that property are going to be that demographic that have the money. So if you can't afford the $1.5 million home as an investment, the next best thing is a townhouse, and it's only going to grow in value. I think that this type of product, there's not enough of them. And because there's not enough of them, it makes it as an investment a better asset because it's scarce, there's finite supply, and they're in really good locations where they can't build any more of them.
No, I think they're sort of what would you say, like a hidden hero. I think the townhouse. I don't think people see them too much, but I think if you can find one, jump on it.
Well, at $550,000 purchase price,
we should have bought more.
We should have bought 10 of them, right? Because it is such an affordable price point to be involved in such a great location, and I think anyone can buy $550,000, especially if you live in Sydney. You look at the prices here, you wouldn't even get an apartment for $550,000. So you're getting a lot of value here. That particular townhouse, 180 squares internally, house-like interiors. So more than enough value for that particular type of demographic to take advantage of.
Beautiful.
The next one, number 8, is a brand new townhouse, this time in Melbourne, right? Now, this is about to be complete in the next month or two. So this was bought off the plan. But we can basically do our figures now off comparable sales. It was purchased for $720,000. Its value, we estimate it to be around $800K based off resales in the area of a similar product. It will rent for $555 per week, giving it a 4% yield. Now, that yield, compared to what we've gone through, might look quite low, but what we've got to remember, this is about 10 Ks from the Melbourne CBD, very premium location. Median house price in these locations are over $1 million. So to have a yield of 4% in a location that's so strong, that's basically equivalent to, say, a Chatswood in Sydney. It is really good value at $720,000.
I think it's similarly replicating the Brisbane style, where that area, a lot of people are going to be wanting to buy to live, and I think that's really where, and given time, because that's just starting now, 2022, the Melbourne property, give it time, and when they see that development exist, those homeowners that want to live there will start, showing interest, want to buy it, and it's going to increase demand for that property.
Well, that's generally how off the plan works, right? Off the plan, for our listeners, what happens is mostly investors come in and they help the development get off the ground. And what happens is developers reward investors getting in there early by giving them a discount because they want to get the project done. It's almost like, hey, you've gone into partnership with me, I'm going to give you a wholesale rate, right? And then what happens over time is people can then touch and feel the product. They can see it, they can walk through it, they see a community getting built there, and then all of a sudden they go, hey, I could actually live here.
I want to be a part of it. Yeah.
So what they do is then the owner-occupiers go into there and buy the resales, and they pay more money for it, and that's where those prices get pushed up, and then over time you've got a great asset. So this is what's happened in the Brisbane townhouse. If we go back to that, what's happened is the developer has given us a discount, a wholesale rate, saying, hey, thanks for jumping on board and believing in my vision. I'm going to build it. Now a community lives there and people are paying up to $750,000 for something that was worth $550 2 years ago because they can now touch and feel it and go in there. So owner-occupiers generally don't buy off the plan. It's generally targeted at investors. But that's how that model works. So if you can buy right with off the plan, right, in a community where you can sort of see a vision of people wanting to live there, they'll pay overs to live there, and then your asset will increase in value.
So the after plan really, you nail it when you find an area where you know people are going to want to live and buy.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. Amazing. You don't want investors to live there forever.
That's right.
Because investors live there forever, it's a very sort of, it's a very investor-focused market where they're only thinking about rents and you're just going to have tenants, and really that's a shit community. What you want, not saying tenants are bad, but what you really want are owner-occupiers going in there, paying overs for that product type. They go out, they mow the lawns every day, they take pride in their asset, they look after it. That generally builds a better community. So every project we get involved in, eventually over the long term, we want owner-occupiers residing there.
Amazing.
Number 9, this was an off-the-plan apartment. So we're now going to apartments, brand new. This was bought in Melbourne. Fantastic location, very blue chip, 10 out of 10 affluent scores.
Yep.
This was bought in 2020/2021 for $390,000.
Wow.
This was a 1-bedroom. The reason why we love 1-bedrooms is because we're buying them at cost of the developer. Where they make their money is on the 2 and 3 bedrooms because all it is the same apartment but just with an extra bedroom, and they'll charge an extra 150 grand, 200 grand for the apartment.
Yep. Okay.
So what we love about 1-bedders is that you're buying it at cost of the developer. They generally don't really make much of a profit of a 1-bedroom. And a lot of people don't know that. So, you know, the yields are higher as well. So we really enjoy playing in that space. The value of this one, so they purchased it for $390, value today $460K. And that's purely on the replacement cost. You can't replace these now because glass, timber, steel, concrete, all gone up in price.
Wages, salaries,
labour, it's all expensive.
I was going to say that a purchase price of 3 in front of it for Melbourne apartment, you can't do that now at all, can you?
So this was settled in 2020, 2021.
Wow.
It was purchased off the plan probably in 2018. So what we've got to remember is this client believed in this developer's vision back in 2018 where there was just a block of dirt. Now he's being rewarded for it because now it's complete. There's been a bit of time pass. Owner-occupiers have gone into that area. They've pushed up that pricing and also added to that the inflation of construction costs and labour shortages have really pushed that price up. So he's made 70 odd grand in capital appreciation in 12, 18 months. It rents for $375 a week, which is a 5% yield.
Wow.
That's what I like about that one is that it's cheap.
Yeah.
Right? Like for now, let's say you were to buy something off the plan now, it's probably going to cost you probably 500 grand. But for the same type of product, you'll get the same result. These things are only going to cost more to produce. The land itself and the build, like they're not going to be able to deliver them for under $500,000 in 1 to 2 years' time. So, if you're on a tight budget, off the plan we know requires only a 10% deposit. If you say buy something for 500 grand, you only need to put down 50 grand and you're in the market.
It's a very efficient use of money. I got a question for that one. Was that purchased under an individual's name or an SMSF, self-managed super fund?
This one was purchased as an individual, but a lot of people do buy these in SMSFs because of the yields quite strong. And also, you only require about 100 grand in your SMSF to complete a purchase like this.
I was going to say that's...
And most people have combined 100 grand.
Yeah, if you're in your late 20s or so, mid-late 20s and onward, that could be a really good one to acquire within super.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of clients that are doing that, and it's easy because people they forget how much super they have. Now we're not going to talk too much about super because we don't want to get in trouble, but have a look at your balance, and see if you can do it because it's probably better in an asset that's leveraged than sitting in the rubbish fund that they've got it in.
Purely based on price point, that seems low enough that most people can do it within super. That's all. And if you can get your money returned like that over time, you're laughing.
So number 10, this is our last one. It's the most exciting one, right? And this is another off-the-plan apartment, but it's the amalgamation strategy.
Oh my God, what does that mean?
So this one was done in Melbourne, and it's about to settle in about 6 months' time. It was purchased for $1 million, and its end value should be $1.2 million once complete. Now we know with off the plan, it's 10%. So for $1 million, you put 100,000 down. If you're going to have an end value of 1.2, you've basically tripled your money, right? Because you're ending up with $200,000 worth of profit. Yield on this one will be 4%. Now, let's talk about what the amalgamation is and why there's been such high capital appreciation on this asset. An amalgamation is a development within a development. So what it essentially means is we've gotten a 2-bedroom unit, and we'd had to go really early, before they start construction, all of that sort of thing. We get a 2-bedroom unit and also a 1-bedroom unit next door to each other. And what we do is we go to the developer and say, hey, we would like to amalgamate these 2 units into one big 3-bedroom. And the reason being is that square meter rates, when developers sell 2 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms, they're usually cheaper than overall 3 bedrooms per square meter. Now, the reason being is because 2 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms are targeted towards investors, and a 3-bedroom floor plan is targeted towards owner-occupiers. So they know they can charge a premium for 3-bedroom apartments. So, for example, a 3-bedroom apartment will sell for $14,000 a square meter. A 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom will sell for maybe $9,000 or $10,000 a square meter. So what we want to do is combine the 1-bedroom and the 2-bedroom into one big 3-bedroom, but we're still only paying $10,000 a square meter. So if all of the owner-occupiers are buying 3 bedrooms at $14,000 a square meter, but we're buying a 3-bedroom, which is our amalgamation, 2 apartments in one, at $10,000 a square meter, we're essentially making a $4,000 a square meter profit, right? And a lot of people ask, well, why doesn't the developer just build more 3-bedrooms? Well, there's not enough people that buy them. Because investors want 1-bedrooms and 2-bedrooms. So if you can buy a product that is in high demand, low supply, because we are in a very heavy undersupply of 3-bedroom apartments in this country. A lot of baby boomers are now downsizing from big homes into 3-bedroom apartments. There's none around. Now that market who buy 3-bedrooms generally pay cash. And when people pay cash, they pay a lot. They don't care. So it's a great product to get involved in, especially in the off-the-plan space, because you're only putting down 10%. It's a very, very unique strategy. I've done it myself. I've actually done 2 2-bedrooms and combined it into a 180 square meter apartment. And I think that thing's probably going to be worth, $300,000 or $400,000 more than I paid initially on contract price. It's a trick that not everybody knows about. It is quite difficult to do because you need to know the developer, but a lot of developers now are being a lot more lenient on it, and they're allowing that strategy to be implemented.
Wow, that's so entrepreneurial. I didn't think you would be able to do that in an apartment sort of complex.
Yeah, so it's like you're doing a project within a project. You can't do it everywhere, but look, very lucrative strategy. You want to spend at least $1 million on something like that. But, I think starting off from number 1, our deal, if you can get into that and then work your way up to that amalgamation, and then potentially after that, maybe look at developments, duplexes, even commercial property. We haven't gone into that, and maybe on another podcast we will. But hey, there's sort of like steps 1 to 10. Pick which one works for you, which one gets you excited, and go for it.
The beauty of these, each property you went through was bought at a different time with a different reason. But as you can see over time, and even without time with the Melbourne amalgamation, they have all returned decent capital growth. So I think that's the key takeaway, is that in property, whether it's quick or slow, you're generally guaranteed, as long as you pick well and your fundamentals are quite needed when identifying them, but you can really make some money.
And Sam, let's not forget, these are real life examples. Like, these aren't made up, like these numbers weren't made up. And if you come and see us and you want us to quote these deals again, we'll actually show you.
We've got the brochures.
Yeah, we've got the contracts, right? And we'll show you the comparables. Numbers don't lie. So, there's something in there for everyone. There's no excuse to not get into the property market. I think, it's never been easier, really. We whinge and whine about it so much, but really there are deals out there that you can do.
Agreed, 100%.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it wasn't too boring with too many numbers. If you guys want to know further about those deals in specifics and you want to go into detail, please reach out to us, because we'd be more than happy to run through those numbers in detail with you. But I enjoyed this podcast. Thank you, Sam.
No worries. Thank you.
I appreciate it a lot. And until next time, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.